In June 2025, the world watched with growing anxiety and disbelief as events in the Middle East took a dramatic and dangerous turn. A long simmering conflict between Iran and Israel, which had threatened to boil over for years, finally exploded into open war, shattering any remaining hopes for peace in the region. For the first time in history, Iran launched large-scale missile attacks directly at Israeli cities, targeting not only military installations but also civilian neighborhoods and infrastructure. Civilian areas were hit with devastating force, shattering previous boundaries and escalating the conflict to a terrifying new level that left families and entire communities in shock. Israel's advanced missile defense systems, including the Iron Dome, were pushed to their absolute limits, working around the clock to intercept incoming threats and protect its people from destruction. The United States quickly stepped in, providing vital military support, intelligence, and resources, raising the stakes for global involvement and signaling that this was no longer a regional crisis. The attacks, soon known as Wave 17, marked a turning point, breaking the unspoken rules that had previously contained the conflict and sending shockwaves through the international community. The human cost and psychological impact were immense, shaking Israel's sense of security to its core and forcing Iran into a desperate gamble that risked everything. The world was forced to confront the reality of direct war between two of the Middle East's strongest powers, with the potential for even wider escalation looming over every decision. Wave 17 changed the rules of engagement, leaving a lasting impact on both nations, their people, and the entire region's fragile stability. For Israel, it was a profound shock, a moment that would be remembered for generations as a test of national resilience and unity. For Iran, it was a risky move from a position of weakness, a gamble that could either shift the balance of power or lead to devastating consequences. The events of those days redefined the landscape of the Middle East, altering alliances, strategies, and the very sense of what was possible in the region. Understanding Wave 17 is key to understanding today's new reality, a world forever changed by those fateful days. The June 2025 conflict was the result of months of rising tension, a slow-burning fuse that had been lit long before the world took notice. It began with Hamas's attack on Israel in October 2023, a shocking event that drew in Iran and its network of proxies, setting off a chain reaction across the region. Groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen launched their own attacks, turning what started as a local fight into a full-blown regional crisis that threatened to spiral out of control. Throughout 2024, Hezbollah's relentless strikes on northern Israel forced entire towns to evacuate, leaving streets deserted and causing deep economic pain for thousands of families. Israel responded with powerful military operations, including a major strike on Iran's air defenses in October 2024, demonstrating its willingness to escalate the conflict if necessary. Iran retaliated with ballistic missiles, signaling a new phase in the conflict and a willingness to use its own forces directly, not just through proxies. Israel's counterattacks severely weakened Iran's air defenses and crippled Hezbollah's fighting capacity, shifting the regional balance and leaving Iran's allies reeling. By early 2025, Iran's proxy strategy was faltering. Hezbollah was diminished, supply routes were cut, and Iranian weapons convoys were repeatedly destroyed before reaching their targets. Iran's own missile attacks failed to inflict major damage, as Israel's advanced missile defense systems intercepted most threats, further eroding Iran's credibility and emboldening its adversaries. Feeling cornered and desperate, Iran's leaders made the fateful decision to launch the massive direct attacks of June 2025, hoping to regain the upper hand and rally their supporters. The cycle of escalation had reached a breaking point, with tensions at their highest and the risk of all-out war looming over the entire region. The stage was set for a direct confrontation between two regional powers, as armies mobilized and soldiers prepared for what could become a historic clash. The region braced for a conflict that would change everything, with civilians on both sides preparing shelters and anxiously awaiting what would come next. The world watched as the crisis unfolded, aware that the decisions made in these tense moments could reshape the Middle East for years to come. Iran's long-standing strategy relied on proxies like Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iraqi militias to fight its battles. This network, the axis of resistance, gave Iran regional influence while keeping direct conflict at bay. But by early 2025, this shield was crumbling. Israel's relentless campaign devastated Hezbollah, forcing its surrender and removing Iran's strongest deterrent. Other proxies, like the Houthis and Iraqi militias, struggled to make an impact. Distance and domestic issues limited their effectiveness. Iran's forward defenses were dismantled, leaving it exposed. When Israel struck on June 13, 2025, the axis of resistance was largely silent. Iran's leadership faced a stark choice: confront Israel directly or risk further humiliation. The failure of the proxy strategy forced Iran into a direct and dangerous confrontation. The exhaustion of its regional network left Iran more vulnerable than ever. The old playbook no longer worked. Iran was now on the front lines. On June 13, 2025, Israel launched a massive, coordinated attack deep into Iran. The operation targeted Iran's nuclear facilities, missile launch sites, and key military leaders. Israeli warplanes struck heavily guarded sites, aiming to cripple Iran's offensive capabilities. Over several days, Israel systematically destroyed missile launchers and air defenses, opening Iranian airspace. By June 16, a third of Iran's missile arsenal was destroyed. The strikes demonstrated Israel's military superiority and resolve to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran. This bold move was designed to preempt threats and reassert dominance. The attack set the stage for Iran's furious response. The conflict was about to escalate to new heights. Iran's response was immediate and fierce. Within hours, it launched a barrage of missiles and drones at Israel, one of the largest assaults in Israeli history. Unlike previous attacks, Iran now targeted civilian areas in cities like Tel Aviv and Haifa. This shift to a counter-value strategy aimed to inflict maximum fear and casualties. The psychological impact on Israel was profound. Civilians faced direct missile strikes from Iran for the first time. By June 16, dozens were dead and hundreds injured. Iran's desperation was clear. Its military options were dwindling and proxies were ineffective. Targeting civilians was a calculated move to pressure Israel and demonstrate Iran's reach. The attacks broke unwritten rules and guaranteed a severe Israeli response. The conflict had entered a darker, more dangerous phase. The cost for both sides was rising rapidly. The world watched in alarm. Israel's survival depended on its advanced, multi-layered air defense system. Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow interceptors worked together to counter the massive missile and drone barrage. As sirens blared, Israeli defenses sprang into action, intercepting the vast majority of threats. The success rate was remarkable, saving countless lives and preventing catastrophic damage. Yet a few missiles broke through, causing casualties and destruction. The sheer volume of the attack tested the limits of Israel's defenses. Even the best systems can't stop every missile in a massive assault. The experience reinforced Israel's resolve to eliminate threats at their source. Defense alone was not enough. The battle for survival was relentless. As the crisis deepened, the United States moved quickly to support Israel. The U.S. deployed advanced missile defense systems, including THAAD batteries and Aegis-equipped warships, to bolster Israel's shield. American forces worked in coordination with Israel, intercepting threats before they reached Israeli airspace. This direct involvement sent a powerful message to Iran and the world about the strength of the U.S.-Israel alliance. The U.S. presence deterred Iran from escalating further, but also risked drawing American forces into the conflict. Tensions rose at U.S. bases across the region, with troops on high alert. Iran's threats to U.S. interests underscored the danger of a wider war. American support was crucial in containing the conflict and saving lives. The alliance proved its value in Israel's darkest hour. In the chaos of war, the battle for information was fierce. Social media and news outlets were flooded with dramatic images, videos, and conflicting claims. Both sides used media to shape perceptions and demoralize their enemy. Viral videos like one showing missile impacts at night were often miscaptioned or recycled from earlier conflicts. Fact-checkers revealed that some widely shared footage was actually from previous attacks, not the current war. Misinformation spread rapidly, confusing the public and muddying the timeline of events. The speed of social media made it difficult to separate fact from fiction. False narratives influenced public opinion and even political decisions. Trusted, verified sources became more important than ever. The information war was as critical as the battle on the ground. Understanding the truth was a challenge for everyone. The conflict played out on screens as much as in the skies. The fighting ended after a few days, but its impact will last for years. The scars left behind are not just physical, but deeply psychological, affecting families and communities across the region. Wave 17 shattered the old rules, ushering in a new era of direct warfare between Iran and Israel. The world watched as the conflict escalated beyond previous boundaries, changing the nature of regional power dynamics. For Israel, the attacks were a traumatic shock, exposing vulnerabilities despite strong defenses. The sense of security was shaken, and daily life was upended for millions. The experience reinforced Israel's doctrine of preemption and its determination to prevent a nuclear-armed Iran. Leaders vowed to strengthen intelligence and military readiness even further. For Iran, the war was a disaster. Its military and proxy network were weakened, and its deterrence shattered. The cost in lives, resources, and reputation was immense. The decision to target civilians backfired, hardening international opinion against Iran. Sanctions and diplomatic isolation quickly followed, deepening the crisis. Humanitarian organizations rushed to provide aid, but the scale of suffering overwhelmed relief efforts, leaving many without basic necessities. Both nations were forced to rethink their strategies and prepare for future threats. Military planners began adapting to a new reality of constant uncertainty. The conflict demonstrated the limits of Iran's power and the strength of the US-Israel alliance. American support proved decisive, reinforcing old partnerships. The region became more unstable, with the risk of future wars rising. Displacement and fear spread as borders grew more volatile. The world saw how quickly tensions could spiral into major conflict. Global leaders scrambled to respond, but solutions remained elusive. The events of June 2025 were not an end, but the start of a new, perilous chapter. The consequences will echo for generations. The Middle East now faces an uncertain and dangerous future, where the threat of renewed violence looms over every city and every border.